Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hope you all are fine and getting benefit from this online session. Now let's begin another very important lecture, and I am trying to make it very simple. Now let's begin with the what is flower, what are the worlds of flower, what are the reproductive organs and types of generations. We will discuss alternation of generations in detail, pollination and double fertilization. Now let's start with the introduction of sexual reproduction. The what sexual reproduction involves the production of gametes and their fusion. So gametes are produced in a specialized structures, and these specialized structures in case of flowering plants are either ovule or they are the anthers. The seeded plants include gymnosperms and angiosperms, and in this lecture we will cover the life cycle of angiosperm, that is the flowering plants. Now what is flower? A flower is a reproductive structure. So this flower has the components which are arranged in the form of whorls. In a flower, two whorls that are the outer जिसे हम कहते हैं non reproductive whorls, and two whorls are the reproductive whorls. As you have seen in the diagram, there are the four whorls. The outer whorls, they are arranged in the, this is the outer whorl, then the inner whorl, then the inner whorl, and then inner whorl. They are the four whorls. Okay, now let's discuss these whorls in detail. Now the outer two whorls which are the non-reproductive whorls, वो कौन कौन से हैं? The whorl of calyx and the whorl of corolla. अच्छा, calyx क्या है? Calyx it's an outermost whorl, green in color, और उसके individual units को हम कहते हैं sepals, and the sepal protects the inner whorls at bud stage. और corolla क्या है? Inner to the calyx, it's the corolla. It is brightly colored and its individual unit is called petals. अच्छा, इन petals का काम क्या है? They attract bees, birds, which are obviously the agents of pollination. Now let's have a look. So in this diagram, as you have seen in the diagram, green color, it's the sepal and it's the wall of calyx. इस यूनिट को हम कहते हैं calyx. They are made up of the sepal. And next to is the petals, that is the corolla, which is the part of inner to the calyx is the whorls of petals, which is called corolla. Now let's come to the reproductive whorls. Reproductive whorls, they are the androecium, जिसे हम कहते हैं male reproductive part, and gynoecium, which is the female reproductive part. So androecium is the male reproductive part and gynoecium is the female reproductive part. मेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट के यूनिट है स्टेमन एंड फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट का यूनिट है कार्पल. स्टेमन के दो पार्ट्स होते हैं, एक को हम कहते हैं फिलामेंट और एक को हम कहते हैं एंथर. फिलामेंट इज अ थ्रेड लाइक स्ट्रक्चर और उस फिलामेंट के एंड पर एंथर अटैच होता है और उस एंथर में पोलन सैक्स होते हैं या इन उन एंथर में माइक्रोस्पोर्स और पोलन ग्रेन्स आर प्रोड्यूस एंड द प्रोसेस इज द मेयोसिस. अच्छा जी, इन केस ऑफ गैनीशियम द कार्पल इज द फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट and each carpel has three parts. कौन कौन से parts हैं? एक हम कहते हैं ovary, style and stigma. And inside the ovary, ovules are present, and these ovules then give rise to the macrospores by the process of meiosis. Now let's have a look. Structure of stamen देखें और structure of carpel देखें. Stamen, this is the filament, this is the anther. और इस anther में pollen grains produce होते हैं. Now it is the gynoecium. This is the basal part which is called ovary और इसमें ovules आपको नजर आ रहे हैं. Now let's an elongated part, that is the style, and that's the part stigma. And this stigma has some sticky substance so that whenever pollen grains come, they attach to that stigma and then stigma. Then from this stigma there is a pollen tube जो हम आगे जाके डिस्कस करेंगे pollen tube क्या होती है. अच्छा जी, अब हम देख लेते हैं कि अब हमने एक वर्ड यूज किए थे माइक्रोस्पोर एंड मैक्रोस्पोर. माइक्रोस्पोर क्या है? माइक्रोस्पोर एक्चुअली पोलन ग्रेन्स को कहते हैं माइक्रोस्पोर. अच्छा जी, माइक्रोस्पोर कहाँ प्रोड्यूस होते हैं? अभी हमने बताया एंथर्स में. उन माइक्रोस्पोर्स को हम पोलन ग्रेन्स भी कहते हैं और ये पोलन ग्रेन्स कहाँ प्रोड्यूस होते हैं इन एंथर्स. The anthers, which is a part of the dendrobium. अच्छा, during its nucleus of microspore undergoes mitosis and produces two nuclei. ठीक है. एट दिस माइक्रोट्यूब कौन कौन से न्यूक्लियस होते हैं? एक को हम कहते हैं ट्यूब न्यूक्लियस और एक को हम कहते हैं जेनरेटिव न्यूक्लियस. A germinated microspore has a long tube nucleus and two sperms collectively called gametophyte. अच्छा, अब हम डायग्राम में देखते हैं कि this is the microspore which is diploid, undergoes meiosis and produce microspores which is the pollen grains. These microspores then undergo mitosis और इस mitosis से दो nuclei बनते हैं. One is the tube nucleus, another is the generative nucleus. ठीक है. So again this there is a mitosis in the generative cells and this generative nucleus is then divided into two more sperm cells और जिसे हम कहते हैं pollen grains which are actually the microspores. Okay. Now let's come to the macrospore germination. अब macrospore कहाँ produce हो रहे हैं? Yes, macrospores they are produced in the ovary. So in the ovary, in the ovule, one microspore is produced through meiosis inside each ovule, and this macrospore then germinates into female gametophyte generation. As you have seen in the diagram, this is the megagametophyte. This undergoes and produces the inside the ovary. There are the megaspores are produced. Okay. So this macrospore undergoes mitosis and produces an egg cell and some associated structure which is called fusion nucleus. And this fusion egg cell and associative structures are the actually female gametophyte generation. अब हम देखें ये फ्लावर है. इस फ्लावर का ये पार्ट है जहाँ पर मैक्रोस्पोर्स की प्रोडक्शन है और ये पार्ट है जहाँ माइक्रोस्पोर्स की प्रोडक्शन है. So in the ovule, in the ovary, there's ovule. Inside the ovule, there are the macrospores are produced. These macrospores then undergo meiosis. They produce the cells which then form the egg and pollen nuclei. Now this is the anther in which the microspores are produced. These microspores then undergo first of all meiosis, then mitosis, and whenever the pollen grains are produced, there are the two nuclei. One is the generative nucleus, another is the tube nucleus, and through this pollen tube, these nuclei then enters into the reaches up to the egg, reaches up to the swollen part ovary, in which the macrospores are formed. ठीक है. Now let's move on. After reaching, अब जब pollen tube या egg cells produce sperms, they reach to the egg cells. Now there is a double fertilization takes place because two sperm cells are formed and from these two sperm cells, अब देखिए यहाँ आप देख रहे हैं two sperm cells, they are formed in the anther and these two sperm cells then enter into the ovary and in the ovary their zygote is formed and there is another endosperm tissue is formed. So the formation of zygote which is diploid and the endosperm which is the triploid is called double fertilization. अब एक sperm फ्यूजन न्यूक्लियस के साथ और एक स्पर्म एग के साथ फ्यूज करेगा. जो एग के साथ फ्यूज करेगा वो ज़ाइगोट बनाएगा. जो फ्यूजन न्यूक्लियस के साथ फ्यूज करेगा वो एंडोस्पर्म बनाएगा. एंड दिस एंडोस्पर्म टिश्यू इज एक्चुअली द सोर्स ऑफ फूड ड्यूरिंग द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ सीड. ठीक है. सो इट्स अ न्यूट्रिटिव टिश्यू. ये एंडोस्पर्म टिश्यू इज द न्यूट्रिटिव टिश्यू. जैसे ही सीड की फॉर्मेशन है, zygote is changes into seed and seed changes into a new plant. So the whole process needs nutrition and this nutrition is provided during germination, before germination by the endosperm tissues. So after fertilization, the fertilized ovule forms seed while the tissues of ovary become the fruit. ठीक है. So this ovule forms the seed, and this ovary form the fruit. चलिए अब एक और फिनोमेना हम देख लेते हैं कि हमने भी बताया कि देयर आर द टू जनरेशन इन द लाइफ साइकिल ऑफ फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स. कौन कौन सी थी? एक को हमने कहा स्पोरोफिटिक जनरेशन, एक को हमने कहा गेमेटोफिटिक जनरेशन. अब स्पोरोफिटिक जनरेशन क्या है? वो जनरेशन जिसके पास रूट, स्टेम एंड लीव्स हैं, विच इज अ स्पोरोफाइट. और इन केस ऑफ फ्लावरिंग प्लांट दिस स्पोरोफाइट इज डोमिनेंट. और गेमेटोफाइट क्या है? गेमेटोफाइट इज एक्चुअली द फ्लावर. जो फ्लावर है दैट इज द गेमेटोफाइट. और क्योंकि फ्लावर प्लांट के ऊपर है, so this gametophyte is actually dependent on the sporophyte. Sporophyte dominant, gametophyte dependent. So this sporophyte generation made up of they are made up of the root, stem, leaves and flower. So gametophyte generation inside the flower there is a male cells, inside the flower there are the female cells. They fuse, they form the zygote and they form the endosperm nucleus as we have seen in the diagram. The pollens, which are the microspores, they reaches up to the ovule, and in the ovule this pollen grains then form the tube. The tube then deposit the sperms here. Here they will fuse with the egg, they will fuse with the fusion nucleus and they form the seed. अब ये देखें, this ovule changes into seed and this ovary changes into fruits. अब देख लेते हैं हम कि generation alternation of generation का phenomena क्या है. So alternation of generation is the phenomena in which sporophyte give rise to gametophyte and gametophyte develops into sporophyte. ऐसा नहीं होता कि sporophyte gametophyte बनाए या gametophyte sporophyte they give rise to gametophyte and gametophyte develops into sporophyte, and this is called alternation of generation. And this is the very common phenomena in case of some algae, some um, non-flowering plant like ferns, like in some rhizopus there is also an alternation of generation. So the haploid spores germinate and grow into the haploid gametophyte. And the diploid sporophytic generation is developed from the zygote formed by fusion of haploid gametes. As you have seen in microgametophyte and megagametophyte, in the megagametophyte, the eggs are produced, the sperms they are produced from the microgametophyte, they fuse, they form zygote. These zygotes are divided into a megasporophyte or microsporophyte, and this microsporophyte then give rise to the gametes, and then gametes fuse to form sporophyte. So this process continues और इसे हम कहते हैं alternation of generation. कि sporophyte gametophyte बनाएगा और gametophyte sporophyte बनाएगा. This is called the phenomena of alternation of generation. Now it's a very simple phenomenon, pollination, as you have all read in your previous classes. What is pollination? The pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anthers of a stamen to the stigma of the carpel is called pollination. Either this pollination either be a self or cross. ये आप पहले पढ़ चुके हैं. So on reaching the stigma, the pollen grains then enters into the and reaches up to the ovule. और ये कैसे बनते हैं? Through the pollen tube. The pollen tube contains the tube nucleus and the two sperms. The tube grows through the style and ovary and enters into ovule. Here it bursts and releases the sperm. So pollination is actually the beginning of the double fertilization, or pollination is the source of fertilization. यही वो प्रोसेस है जिससे स्पर्म्स कहाँ तक पहुँचते हैं? फीमेल gametophyte या फीमेल reproductive cells तक. Now this is the whole life cycle. As you have seen in the diagram, flower is the reproductive part. This flower has sepal, petals, anther and carpel. Sepal is the calyx whorl, then the petal, that is the second whorl, the third whorl is of anther and fourth whorl is of pistil, जिसे हम कहते हैं carpel. अब ये कार्पल का स्ट्रक्चर देख लेते हैं. कार्पल में ओव्यूल, inside the ovule there are the megaspore mother cells, then megaspores and this process continues, and here is the process of double fertilization. Same is the case कि यहाँ पर है fertilized egg, then changes into seed, then changes into seed, then germinates into a new plant. This is the whole life cycle of flowering plants. Hope you learned a lot from this lecture. If you have any question, do ask me in my comment section. I will try my level best to answer your questions. Thanks for watching and hope you learn from this lecture a lot. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.